Hello, good morning. 26th of Nisan. Gadol Torah, Shemeri V'Afula Kol Chai. Great is learning Torah because it brings healing to all people, to all living things. Who needs a refuah?
Shmuel ben Devorah Leah, Shmuel ben Merav, Hillel ben Hillel, Baruch Yehuda ben Yehuz, Eliana Shalamas bas Miriam, Yehuda Golda bas Elisa Hana, Chaim Yaakov Zeb ben Sarah, Yosef Yitzhak ben Lior, Shoshana bas Hana, Gary Roberts, son of George, Yaakov Shaul ben Hana Miriam.
Refuah Shlema B'Korev. My list is also growing. These lists need to get shorter.
Absolutely.
Tuvia ben Avram, Toba Miriam bas Chanorocho, Yair ben Adela, Mordechai Yehuda ben Hana, Yisro ben Yamin ben Leah Gittel, Keren Eliana bas Sarah, Devorah Leah bas Rusa Huvaliba, Rivka Mina bas Chaya Esther, Menachem Yehuda Nisan ben Rezel Tzivia, and you said Elana. Yeah, for Shlema.
Devorah Leah, Malka bas Devorah Leah.
Refuah Shlema B'Korev Mamash. Okay?
No, I got one. Shalom Dov Ber Ben Rachel.
Refuah Shlema B'Korev Mamash. Okay, 26th of year. Today's Hayom Yom. Okay, from a sikha of my father. This is the Frierdiker Rebbe speaking about his father, the Rebbe Rashab. So the Rebbe Rashab said, Hasidus demands that one, quote, wash his flesh with water and clothe himself in them meaning the priestly robes. This is a quote from Vayikra about ritual purification. So he takes that and takes its pieces and applies it to spiritual purification, purifying ourselves. The intellectual element of Hasidus, that's the water, right? Chachma, the Torah is compared to water that flows from a high place to a low place. And it's the head. As we've been speaking, the head flows and influences the heart. So the heart should understand and the heart should it should inherit the intellect, and the intellect should warm the heart and fire up the heart. So the intellectual element of Hasidus must thoroughly cleanse the flesh and rinse away the habits of the flesh. The habits are alluded to by the word and. It says, Az rochatz es basore, or et basore. You should wash, and then the word es. There's like in English there's a word for it. That's just the word et, without, it just adds something. So, the word et. So the habits are alluded to by the word et, and in the quoted verse, signifying that which is incidental to the flesh. And this, by the way, this Hayom Yom, you could really bookmark this because it really expresses succinctly the attitude that we've been speaking about when the Tanya and Al Chassidus speaks about subjugating the flesh, subjugating the body. And I keep saying that means subjugating it in terms of bringing forth its ability to flatten its attachment to this world for its own sake, and to attach itself to the world for the sake of serving Hashem, so that the power of the animal becomes cleansed and invested in and becomes a vehicle for service of Hashem. So as he goes on, and he says, so we have to cleanse ourselves from the habits of developed by the body. Only then can one clothe himself in the sacred garments. And now he elaborates in a fairly long Yom Yom. Pondering Hasidus, discussing Hasidus and the practice of Hasidus, to meditate before davening. Also something to keep in mind. This is brought, the Rebbe explains the place of meditation in Inyoni Shel Torah Hasidus. It's a long sikha from the Rebbe that's translated in English. He explains that meditation, what we call hisbaininus, which everybody is interested in, it happens before davening. Meditate before davening. These are before you start your prayers. These are sacred garments. So again, discussing Hasidus and practicing Hasidus, which we are doing now, discussing Hasidus and looking for ways to put it into practice before davening. These are sacred garments, garments that were given from the heights of sanctity. But it is the person himself who must wash his flesh with water. The garments of the soul are given to the individual from on high. But washing away unwholesome incidentals that arise from bodily nature and making the body itself flesh of sanctity, this is achieved solely by man's efforts, man's own efforts. This is what Hasidus demands, and it is for this ideal that our great teacher, the Alter Rebbe, displayed Mesiras Nefesh, total self-sacrifice. He opened the channel of Mesiras Nefesh for serving God through prayer, to be bound up with the essence of the Ein Sof, the infinite God. Hasidus places a chosid face to face with the essence of the Ein Sof. These words will be somewhat echoed in the Tanya we're about to learn. In Lessons in Tanya, bottom of page 620. In Likkutei Amorim, below the middle of page Sama. The line begins, Haroya Ha'oizen. So we were speaking about cultivating Yiras Het or Yirat, cultivating, or put it this way, releasing and allowing to shine forth the character, the quality of sensitivity to and wanting to achieve and close the gap, sensitivity to the distance from Hashem that one may be in, which is a function of yira. That's the notion of being in distant and wanting to draw close. And he says that a person, in order to do this, one of the things that the person should bring to mind is that Hashem himself is looking at everything that we're doing. He is everywhere present and everywhere has visibility into every minutiae of everything that he's bringing into existence, from Atzilus down to the pulse of blood in each and every one of our bodies. So with that, one has to then address a small question, which is Hashem sees every single thing down here in the body, and in Atzilus. And this is where he's starting. Even though God does not have the image of a body, the shape of a body, on the contrary, it's not like he's coming down, zoop, taking a look at you and me and doing that simultaneously. Everything, he is Ein Kates. And yet, and at the same time, because he's Ein Kates, without any end and without any beginning, everything is constantly revealed in front of him. Everything is revealed and known and is being known in front of him, with much more capability, Ein Kates, and much more capability than Maris Ha'ayin v'Shemias Ha'ozen, than we think when we see it, looking at something. I'm looking at something. I see it, right? Or I hear it. We use these words as metaphors for Hashem, but we can't put him in the same gather, in the same compartment that we put our own ability to see and hear. But we use those expressions. He's seeing and he's hearing, al derech mashal. And these are terms of metaphoric terms. Rakhu al derech mashal kamei adam. So we're saying that God, and as we look at him through these mashalim, he's kamei adam. He's like a person. Now think about yourself. Hayedeh u'margish ba'atzmei, who knows and feels yourself. Kol ma shenase v'nifol be'echad mikol ramach evorav. If your toe is stubbed, you feel the pain. If you need to cut your nails, you look over here. So there's a you who has a perspective on all your body parts. So we're using this as a muscle. Hashem has visibility into, that's a muscle, and can hear all his body parts, so to speak, which is the entirety of creation. Just like you can feel your limbs, kamei kor or ham, if you see that you're feeling cold or you're feeling warm. And even if there's coldness in the toenails of your feet, you can feel that. Al derek mashal. In nichva ba'oye, for instance, if you scorch your foot in fire, and also you feel your inner organs, not just the externalities of yourself, but you feel the internalities of yourself, especially when, God forbid, they bother you. And you feel everything that's going on with them. You feel that you have a muscle ache. You have a pain somewhere here. You do umargish. So you know and you feel all this. In your head, your mind gets a hold of this. Something like this, and I'll put in the word, and only something like this, does Hashem, Yodei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kol HaNifel, does Hashem know all the effects, all the things that are happening, B'Kol HaNivroyim, Elyonim V'Tachtonim, in all the created things, the higher levels and the lower things, Lies Kulam Mishboy Mimenu, because all of them literally flow from him, and he is never apart from them. Just like your brain is responsible for the flow and the coordination of your heart and the heartbeat, etc., and is never separated from him. That's the mashal. So Hashem also, he's responsible for and always one with everything that's happening in all the upper and lower worlds, because all of them flow from him. May he be blessed. As the pasuk says, the pasuk says, from you is everything. And also, this is what's written actually in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. It says, there's no thing which is formed, which is hidden from you. And as the Rambam writes, and he writes in brackets, and by the way, the wise ones of the Kabbalists also agreed with the Rambam, as the Ramak Moshe Kodevera writes in his Pardes. So both the Rambam and the Kabbalists are aligned on what's on the following, which is from a knowledge of himself, God knows all creatures and everything which is found, which everything exists. From the truth of his existence. Okay, so fine. So in that respect, just like there's a we who knows and feels what's going on with us. There's a Hashem who knows and feels everything that's going on with him, which is everything that is. Right? But this mashal, this metaphor is only so we can literally, this is an expression used a lot, to allow the ear to hear. In other words, to give us some sense of understanding. Aval ba'emes, in truth, ein hamashal daimel nimshul klal. The mashal, the metaphor, is not compared, the analogy is not compared to the analog at all. Why? The soul of a person, even the intellectual aspect of our soul and the godly aspect of our soul, these levels of the soul, even the deeper levels of the soul, are affected by the events of the body. And they can experience, and we experience pain. Pain is not a physical thing. It's an experience that's just triggered by a physical event, or it doesn't have to be physical pain, emotional pain. But there's some event which is triggering the pain, or on the opposite, triggering the joy. So these feelings that we have are affected by the goings on and the happenings of the body. But Sairoi Machmis, and the difficulties, the pain and suffering, Machmis Islapshusa Mamish Benefesh Achiyunis Hamulubeshes Beguf, because of the enclothement, Mamish, in the body, in the animal soul, and the enclothement of the soul, the soulful aspect of ourselves in the body. The key word here is Hislapshus. There's a enclothement of the soul in the body. Mamish. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, back to word Kaddish means separate. Einem is spoiled, has v'sholem. He is not affected. We, the same we who's observing and feeling the pain, we are affected by the pain or the joy. Hashem himself, he's not enclosed, that word, he's not bound into, and as a result of things affected by, Einem is spoiled. He's not affected by the things that are happening, Has v'sholem, Mama'uri ha'olam, from whatever is happening in the world and the worlds, V'shinuyev, and their changes. Neither is he affected by the world itself, because Shekulam Einem Spoilim Boy Shum Shinui Has v'sholem, because he is about the one about his, we say, I am Hashem, I never change. Change is not something that's relevant to him. He does not change. Now, to understand this, to understand this well in our own minds, there's a lot written about this. He's saying the Chachamim wrote a lot about this in their books. However, Kol Yisrael, and the point that he made earlier, as much as we understand it, we can never really understand it because it's not understandable. The models that we have in the world that we know are not the models for Hashem. The world, I touch something, I have an experience of the sensation, and that changes the way I was before. Hashem is all present in all ways, in all things, all the time, and is not affected. His change is not a function that we can apply to him at all. Ani Hashem lo shanisi. It's a pasuk. I am Hashem. I have never changed. So, although this is written about a lot, it's the way that one can grasp it is not so much through seichel, but as he says, Kol Yisrael maninim b'nei maminim. All of the Jewish people, deep down deep, or more superficial, if we're a little bit more attuned to this, all of the Jewish people are believers, the children of believers, bli shum chakiras seichel anushi, without, and we don't need any, and it doesn't apply here to have any investigation, intellectual investigation about this thing. We all say, Atahu ad shel nivra ha'olam, you are he who was before the world was created, and you are he who will be after the world is created, bli shum shinoi, without any change. As this was said in Perek Kof, Perek 20. That's today's Tanya. So this was just really an explanation of yesterday, that he said Hashem comes and he sees and he looks and he's able to see, and as a result of which make judgments about everything we're doing. Yes, but not in the way, there's a mimer, really interesting, well, they're all interesting, mimer in Torah Or about Sodom and Amorah, that it begins with the pasuk from Chumash, that Hashem goes down to see, and it asks the stupid question, or the plain question, what do you mean he goes down to see? He sees everything, right? So when he says here that Hashem investigates your kidneys, and your bowels to make judgments, yes, he does. But his investigation isn't in the way that we have to go over to the place and investigate, because he sees everything from the fact that he is everything. That's today's Tanya. Questions, comments? Yes, Bacha.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm asking like a stupid question or an endless question, but like, is there anything? Is change a reality? Is there anything that the word change could be used to describe?
Absolutely. Everything that's outside of essence of Hashem experiences change. And how does that happen? This is, I think, is related to a question and answer. Hopefully, I answered that you asked yesterday. Maybe I have you confused, which is the secret of the Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum. From Hashem's perspective, there is no change, and that's where your question comes, right? Okay,
Right.
there is nothing changes. However, he's brought forth another reality, which is change. The word shana, which is year. Year has seasons. There really are seasons, aren't there? Right? Fall is different from the middle of the summer, right? Yesterday you'll experience some things which are different from the day before. Those things are real. What gives and causes that reality is the Tzimtzum. Hashem conceals the allness from which perspective there is no change, and he allows to bring forth, and he brings forth from himself the experience of change. The former is called, that where there is no change, is called Das Elyon, the supernal Das. This is knowledge from Hashem's perspective, in which he is God and Ani Shanisi, Ani Hashem La Shanisi, I am Hashem and I haven't changed. That's called Das Elyon in the language of Chassidus, Kabbalah and Chassidus. And the second is called Das Tachton, the perspective of the lower, the perspective after the Tzimtzum. And after the Tzimtzum, which is where we all live, is a world of change. But your question is a great question, because at the same time, there is no change, right? Both of these are going on.
At the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Both of these are going on together. Exactly. Let your mind grasp that one.
Well, I was kind of thinking that it was like the 5 levels of the soul, that you have Mamale, Kol Almin, and Sovev.
Well, that's all in the world of change. All in the world of change. Even Sovev. Sovev, remember, is part of Kol Olmin. In the word Kol Olmin. Kol all concealment. You got to get, right? The diuk in the languages is so, it's not just evocative, it's instructive. Sovev Kol Olmin encompasses all worlds. So
and with that world, it doesn't remain?
Pardon me?
Well, if the world didn't exist, it wouldn't remain? Sovev?
You broke up on the, if what?
Sovev Kol Almin. If the world didn't exist, there were no Almin. The Sovev itself wouldn't remain?
Right. Why does he need Sovev if there's no Kol Olmin?
Because
what's he going to be Sovev to? Surrounding, encompassing. What's he going to encompass?
So the Sovev necessarily requires an Olam in order to Sovev?
Put it this way. Sovev is a higher level of Das Tachton, meaning it's something that comes from him. Remember, these are also called lights, right? Or Hasovev, or Mamale. You've heard those expressions?
Yeah.
Light is an emanation from him. Emanation comes after Tzimtzum. Before Tzimtzum, there's no emanation. There's just the Ein Sof, the infinite one, Atzmos.
So how do we have access to Atmos? How can we face Atmos if the highest part of our soul is just a Sovev?
No, I didn't say that. You're saying that. The highest part of our soul is just a Sovev. It's not. Our highest part of our soul is Chelik Elokam Imao.
That's Atmos.
Yeah. Correct.
So it's not our soul. Our soul is separate from Atmos.
Our soul is an entity. And once you're talking entities, you're talking the world after Tzimtzum. But there's no disconnect. It's a continuum. It's just that they're so different, diverse from each other, that you need to develop special eyes, so to speak. Not special eyes. You just need to bring forth another level, which is the level of Atzmus. But Atzmus, when you speak of Atzmus as a level, those words also mix things up, because once you're speaking levels, you're speaking Tzimtzum.
No, I'm not speaking Atmos as a level.
Yeah.
Atmos is beyond levels.
Atzmus is beyond level. And we are a chelik elikam mamosh. We are a part of that essence. As a part of that essence, we can experience essence, we can experience soivev, which is after the Tzimtzum, and we can experience mamali, which is also after the Tzimtzum. You know, 3 levels. Mamali, soivev, etzem. All in our soul. So we have a shtickle das elyon, and we have a lot of das takton. If those words are meaningful at this moment, I hope they are.
A shtickle and a
shtickle meaningful, right? I mean, we have within us that we have atzmus within us, right? Which is before the Tzimtzum, and we have hispashtus, the flow which comes from atzmus, which is Tzimtzum. We have it. Okay, I think enough said. I hope for the moment, anyway.
Hello. Good morning.
Rosa, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just noticed we were learning, it says, Ki nefesh ha'adam, afilu hasichlas velokis, he mispa'elas.
Yeah.
The human soul, we would translate it as the human soul, but I'm wondering if this word was chosen by
Which particular word?
In other words, that the Alter Rebbe says nefesh ha'adam is affected.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you mean the level called nefesh? Is that what you're after? Yeah, that's where because the lower you go down from the excuse me, from the Tzimtzum Harishon, the original Tzimtzum, down to Tzimtzum achar Tzimtzum achar Tzimtzum. That's the expression. One Tzimtzum after another. You're going down in levels, and those levels do correspond broadly to the 4 levels of the soul: Yechidah, Chai, Neshama, and Nefesh. Oh, I skipped one. Nefesh, Ruach, 5 levels of the soul. So Nefesh, is the expression of the ultimate. It's the bottom where the most separation occurs, and where we feel that separation.
So I'm just as we were discussing this, the thought came to me that we talk about and we strive for connection with Hashem. We haven't even gotten to connection with all aspects of ourselves.
Correct. And they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. Thank you. The more when we connect with ourself, the real self, the true self, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're connecting with some part, but as it were, a lower level of godliness itself.
And really, that's what Tanya teaches. And you could learn a lot of Torah, and if you're not learning Tanya, it's not even mentioned.
Of course not. Of course not. That's what Chassidus is.
That's what Chassidus is.
Yeah, Chassidus gives us a lens that didn't exist until then.
That was my thought of this, especially at this time, because the days of the Sefira are meant to be for spiritual growth.
Yes.
We're not just supposed to be remembering to count so that I could say it with a bracha the next day, which is for ladies, it's a big deal because we're not going to shul, so we're not all counting together. Did I remember? But it's supposed to be that it's a time for this.
Not only is it time for it, but the word itself, Sefira, the Alter Rebbe has 3 Maimorim, I think, 3, maybe 4, in Likutei Torah on Sefira Sa'omer. And in the very first one, he points out that Sefira is Lashon Safir. Safir, there are 3 Lashonim. Safir, which is to tell, it tells a story. The Sefira, each Sefira tells a story, and each day of the Sefira, they're put in front of us to read the story, learn the story, internalize the story. But the one that's I'm going to focus on here is sapphire, which is to shine like a shining stone, a sapphire. So each of these days are meant to illuminate us by our deep, if we can, but certainly some contemplation and understanding each day of the meaning, the simple meaning of the spheres combination for the day, because that is the spiritual energy that's dominant for that day.
So that's the thing. I think that's really like, I don't know, it's really an avoda, because
Sure it is.
It's so easy to kind of have this impression and to go about your life with this impression. Like, you know, if you ask a young child, where's Hashem? They'll point to the sky.
Yeah. Which
so
is
we
right.
have to like kind of the message of Tanya, one of the messages that the Alter Rebbe says again and again is Hashem is right here.
So if they teach the kid like that, yes, the sky, and yes, here, and guess what? We're children of the sky.
You know, Hashem is up, but Hashem is also down, right? You know,
right.
I learned that from Rabbi Goldstein.
Exactly.
Rabbi Yosef Goldstein.
So did we. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is really everywhere.
So,
up, down, yep. Good. Let me give some time, if you will, to Elisheva. I think you're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wonder why you would point that out, because doesn't Hasidus talk about how we do make a difference to Hashem? That how do you...
That's the question I was wondering if anyone would ask. If he doesn't change, how is it then? How can we have an effect on him? Right? And our whole avoida is having an effect on him.
Right. And he cares about us, and he becomes angry or upset or happy or nachat, ruach.
That's correct. That's correct. So how do you answer that, do you think?
We don't understand it. It's because that's Hashem's ratzon.
That's absolutely right. That's a way of saying it. Because he's not limited, he contains both limitlessness and limitedness. Remember back, this is something we talked about. I don't remember, it's not the Rambam, but I have to remember where I first learned this, but it's in Chassidus over and over again. The definition of Ein Sof, without end. We think of it from the side that we've kind of focused on this morning, which is it's endless and it encompasses everything, right? But we're missing something. If it encompasses everything, it has to encompass limitedness as well. Because if Hashem, this is, our discovery that I found, after years of learning, but then I saw it in so many different places. And this is the deal, that we can't take at face value the word Ein Sof to mean he just goes and on forever, because if he couldn't limit himself, he would be limited. So this is the paradox. He, on the one hand, is not on the one hand, he is both unlimited and limited. And that, wait a minute, just one more sentence, and that's what the Kabbalists sum up in one phrase. He is able to bear opposites. He bears opposites.
So at the same time that we learn about God, that he doesn't change, and Hodulu Chachmei HaKabbalah, and the Rambam says this, and it's all true. Right. At the same time we're learning this, we should keep in mind that also he does change. And
that we can affect him.
And also we can affect him. And also he does become affected.
Yes.
Sheesh.
Okay. Now we could discuss what levels are it that aren't affected, what levels that are unaffected, that are affected, but yes, both. Noisei hafachim, that's the expression.
So it's correct to look at the Tanya, read the words of truth in it, and know that that's not the only truth?
No, you just haven't read enough of the Tanya yet.
Oh, he says it elsewhere in the Tanya?
Yeah, I don't know what you true. I mean, when I meant they don't. I was really extrapolating. You may learn in Hasidus as we have done today, and you have not yet learned maybe in Hasidus the other piece. Whether this expressed in the Tanya, I really don't know. whether they come across that idea. But yeah, your point is you can learn in Chassidus, as we did today, that he's unaffected, and you can learn in Chassidus that he is affected. But these are, each of them is speaking about a different level of Hashem. Ani Hashem Le'Shenisi is before, remember, before, deeper than anything exists other than him. And that always does exist. At the same time, this is back to Batya's question, at the same time, this is the mind blower, at the same time, limitedness, it does exist. And in the Das Tachton world, in the world of Tzimtzum, there are changes. And those changes affect, and that's where we have the ability to ask for Hashem's mercy, ask for Hashem's kindness, ask him to change his mind, don't judge us. All that's in the world of, well, not the world, who's the world, in the level of the lower level of Das, which is also part and parcel of him. He contains both, Das Elyon and Das Tachton. We're kind of limited by Das Tachton, but that is in our mind. But our mind also has a window, right? Chochmah me'ayin timotze, has a window into the infinite. So it's all over. As I said, I can't answer. I don't remember whether he really addresses this in Tanya, but it's addressed quite elaborately throughout all of Chassidus.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. But for our practical purpose today, lesson for today, keep in mind that that God comes and looks at us. Don't think that he's coming down here and looking down here. And he's looking over there and he's low. It's with his knowledge, this is the Rambam, right? With a knowledge of himself, he knows everything that's happening. From that's Elyon. There is no other besides him. Yet, he sees everything that is having the experience of being something besides him.
If we take it to human form, I just want to add this one sentence. I know we have to go. It's like if we close our eyes and feel inside, that's like God kind of swooping into our body. That's how I imagine, like really feeling what's happening. That when our eyes are open and we're walking around life and we're busy, we're not thinking about, we're not seeing ourselves.
Right. But you can access it if you just stop.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Very nice. See you guys all tomorrow. Hashem.
Okay.
Bye-bye.